Great, thank you. Callie?
Hi everyone, I'm Callie Schweitzer, the managing editor of Thrive Global, which is Arianna Huffington's new health and well-being company focused on changing the way we work and live by ending the collective delusion that burnout is key for success.
Hi everybody, I'm TeLisa Daughtry. I am the founder and CEO of Flytechnista. Think of LinkedIn meets Meetup, but for women and girls in tech. So we help to bridge the gap between women and girls in access to education, career, and entrepreneurship opportunities by facilitating relationships with various partner organizations in the global tech ecosystem, and we're getting ready to launch 428.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah Gilliam. I'm the VP of Strategy and Innovation at GIrlsWhoCode. We have a single mission, which is to close the gender gap in tech. We educate, inspire, and expose young women to computer science. Thanks.
Great. So we're going to start by talking about coding. But first, can we get a sense for who's in this room? If you're a student, can you raise your hand? Okay. And entrepreneurs? Please raise your hands. Okay. And then employees at a company. Okay. And executives from companies. Wonderful. Cool. So I'm going to pose this question to the panel. Do you guys think that coding is a valuable skill? And how valuable is it? You know, what do you tell people when they say, do I need to learn to code? Aurelie, we'll start with you.
Sure. So when people ask me why do you like coding, the first thing I say is because I have the power to change the world. So there are two reasons why you should learn how to code. There are different reasons. One of them is that, well, we need software developers to create the tools of the future. And to be honest, diversity, if we bring more women into this ecosystem, the products that we're going to create will be better. So learn how to code for that. We need you. Another reason is that, again, we want people to become power users of new technologies. I want you to use your critical sense to get a better idea, to give your insightful input to any debate on technology, on artificial intelligence, of anything, because coding is a valuable asset to learn that, to understand the mechanisms. So there is a double reason to do that.
Now you've been coding for 15 years, right?
Yes.
So for somebody that didn't start when they're young, what are their options? And maybe that's a question for you, TeLisa and Leah.
Yeah, same. So currently right now, just in the US alone, there are over 2,000 organizations and initiatives that are committed to helping women gain technical skills, namely in coding. So some of really great places to start that are free and inexpensive would be definitely Code Academy, Udemy, and various meetups such as Women Who Code, Girls Who Code. So they all range pretty much anywhere between K through 12, higher ed, and as well as helping women who are transitioning in their skills to gain technical skills. So the options and the resources are kind of like limitless, with boot camps and workshops like popping up everywhere now.
How does somebody know what is a good workshop versus one that's just, somebody saying that you're going to learn to code, but you might not actually?
So actually that's the problem that my product Flytechnista solves, is to help connect women within the global tech ecosystem to all of the resources that kind of make sense to them, that fit with them, so they're not as vetted out and carefully curated, and it's also a sophisticated algorithm that connects their interests, their passions, their eco background, and all of these things. So I think that's one of the ways that we're helping to solve that problem of not knowing if there's a resource available to them.
And Leah, with the girls that come to Girls Who Code, what are their reasons? Like, why are they learning to code? What is their motivation?
Yeah, I'd love to just back up for one quick second and just talk a little bit about some of the larger ideas when we talk about why it's important to code.
Yeah.
And this is something that we found to be really important when we're working with young women, is that, as adults, we sort of have an immediate association of why code might be important. But particularly for young women, you actually have to show them how computer science drives and impacts the world. You have to give them a sense of the kind of relevance of computer science and of these ideas. So for me, one of the things that's most important and why I became interested in coding, and certainly something that really drives our programs at Girls Who Code, is just this idea of relevance. I mean, the real, beauty and interest of code and computer science is that you can express your ideas. You can take a small idea and make it into a workable, kind of scalable solution. You can create a prototype. You can be a 13-year-old girl who can learn how to code and create a prototype of an idea that anyone can see and access and use. And that's really, really powerful, to be able to take something that's your own and illustrate it so that other people can use it and see it and understand it. So one big thing that we do with the young women in our program is we help sort of dispel this myth that coding is something that you do alone, that it's done by boys in basements in Silicon Valley. We help them understand that it's something that there's actually a really strong history of underrepresented minority groups who have had a really strong impact in computer science, from Grace Hopper to Katherine Johnson to the women who drove all of the computation at NASA that were featured in the Hidden Figures movie. So we like to make sure that girls understand that it's not just code. Yep. It's really more than code. It's problem solving, it's analyzing skills, it's beginning to really understand how to think differently and how to communicate with technology. And that's the most important thing that we do, is that we help girls understand that this is something that they can do, that it's a long history that they actually have taken part in, although they didn't know it, and that it's really important for helping them to impact and show the kinds of ideas that they have in the world.
To add into that, I also believe when I began my journey in technology as a self-taught developer in 1998, there weren't these resources that exist today. There weren't role models for little black girls like me and from Roxbury who stuck with it. Now, going on to 20 years as a developer, it was very discouraging not seeing these communities. So for me, it's important. Coding became an absolute game changer for my life. It changed my trajectory. I never thought that I would navigate to some of the things that I've been able to do. But the main reason why coding is very important to me is we can be erased from this digital history if we're not participating in it. And it's very important that women, people of color, are not erased from digital history. So learning to code is essential. Even if you don't want to be a developer, about 1.4 million tech-related skills are going to be necessary to obtain jobs in 2020, and that's just the fact. So I implore you to learn some code. I'll be happy to navigate and help you with it, but it's absolutely necessary.
And also something that is very important to jump on what you're saying, thank you, it's that coding is everywhere. And taking my example, I've been developing for like 15 years now. I have 12 years of experience as a computational scientist, and I've been working 7 years in medicine, on cardiac tissue engineering, on traumatic brain injury. I worked in pure engineering, I worked for education, building computational education tools for all students in the world, and now I'm working in finance to make the finance more transparent. So in other words, when you code, you can do anything. And in the future, coding will be more and more everywhere. Journalism, agriculture, sociology, anything. So think about it. If you want to be innovative, if you want to be empowered in any field, learning how to code is, again, a way to develop tools, but not only, to have ideas, to develop your creativity, and to work with people who are going to develop those tools also for you. So think about it. It's very an opportunity for women.
Great, thank you guys. So I think that kind of one of the other digital skills is this idea of working with data and being data savvy, and data is now touching every industry, including media. So I'm going to turn this over to Callie, who works at Thrive alongside Ariana Huffington, and tell me how media companies have turned into data companies and how you guys are using data to inform the decisions that you're making editorially.
Absolutely. So now we know that we live in a world where it's the attention economy. You know, the most valuable thing that you have and that you can give a company is your attention. And I have to say, it's really exciting to look out and see so many faces as opposed to seeing people's top of their heads where, they're on their phone or on their computer. And, if you're on your phone here, I'm sure you're just diligently taking notes. There are thousands of engineers working at the companies who power the apps and the products that are trying to get you to come back and give them your attention all the time. And the more data we give them, the more they know about us. And it's actually really interesting. A company called Moment has done a study around the apps that make us happiest are actually the ones we spend the least time with. So the ones that are utilitarian, Google Calendar, Waze, Google Maps, things where, you go in, you get the service, and you come out. And so, as we, as a media company, think about data, we want to use it in a way that really adds value and helps the consumer. So how can we give you content that is going to help you live a better life? For us at Thrive, everything that we do is based in micro steps, which are small science-backed actions that you can take to make a small improvement in your life. We know behavior change, just like learning to code, doesn't happen overnight. And so how can we give you small tips and recommendations and encouragement that, isn't hitting you over the head with something, but instead that is helping you in the process. And so that's something that we're really focused on when it comes to data.
Data, too, is creating additional jobs that never existed before. So tell me about that, some of the jobs that are now parts of media companies and other companies as well that are now a result of needing to the new data information that we have.
Absolutely. So in my former life at Time Inc., I was overseeing audience strategy and audience growth across the company, and audience development, the job of the analyst, all of these roles were all typically in different areas. You might have been looking at consumer marketing numbers for magazine subscriptions or something, but now, it's so important to understand the signals and the data that you do have, and so we've seen just a huge growth in this idea of audience engagement, development, strategy, really understanding the audience, what they want, and how to super serve them.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of this might be overwhelming for those who are not coders and are not working with data, but we were talking before about this idea of a power user. So Aurelie, if you can kind of explain, you work with a lot of different folks at your company, and you're the one that has the coding skills and the knowledge. So what are those interactions like, and what makes for a meaningful interaction with somebody who does not have those skills?
Absolutely. So, as you said, I'm a coder, so literally I do math and coding all the day long, and this is very exciting, by the way. So, so what you're saying is very important, because becoming a power user is a way to work together. What I mean by that is the following. We talk about digital, we talk about data. I always say that the digital transformation is almost over. We are right now at what I like to call a digital or analytic transformation. So on the top of the digital tools that we need to use, we're going to put data. And so, as you say, Callie, we're going to not only reach our consumer or users, clients, we're going to understand them, which is a big difference in any single business. So that being said, we need to understand even more the technology. Because the tools that we've been using for the digital transformation, they were general enough to be used by any single company in any field. But now, if you put data on top of it, it's more custom-made. Because every single client is different, every single company is different, every single question we want to answer is different. That being said, we need to become power user. Why? Because give me my example at Bloomberg. I've been working at Bloomberg for almost a year. I don't know nothing about finance. You're okay, you understand that, but I'm learning. So that being said, I need to work with people who understand really well the field, the domain, who can really understand the client, to talk with me, to guide me, to answer my questions. But those people need also to understand my language, my world, my ecosystem. So, for instance, at Bloomberg, I'm working with what we call business. People who know the clients, who are talking to them, who know exactly what are the priority. And they actually help me to understand that. They actually help me to understand the long-term vision. They are leaders, And so that being said, they need to understand me. And believe me or not, they are very interested in understand what I do. I'm very interested in learning a little bit about coding, about technology. And if they don't do that, they cannot speak to me. Don't get me wrong, I need to make an effort to talk to them, but they need also to understand me. So that being said, all of us here, we need to become power user to work with people who, maybe not today, but tomorrow, software developer, data scientists will come to your company, to your departments to work with you, to go further, into their business.
And for actionable kind of things that people can do, is that asking questions? Is that taking courses? Like how can somebody show that they're open and trying to learn?
So it's a good question, because there is no one single answer to that, because we're still currently in this transformation. you can come to me, so I can answer your questions. But you can actually, there are different things. This is why I propose with my company, for instance, I guide other companies to actually better understand technologies. I do one-to-one coaching, group coaching, to actually explain people what it is, to train them literally, you know. And my theory is that if you learn a little bit about coding, you can learn about technology, about what is an algorithm, what is a powerful algorithm, what do we do with data, what is possible. So I would say that there is an effort to make inside the company itself, at the scale of the company, you know, with online training, on-site training, and individually also, and especially leaders. They need to learn a little bit, because I think that in the future, to decide, you need to code, you know. So it's very important.
And Leah, can you talk to a little bit about that in the importance of educating at a young level, because at a young age, because then, you know, even if they don't go on to become coders, they still have that knowledge and that background.
No, I mean, I think one thing that's really important is just this idea of learning how to learn and understanding how you learn. I mean, one of the things that we're really talking about here is having transferable skills, right? That's why you can work in a financial industry, even though you're not a financial expert, right? It's because you have a sense of expertise, and you have an ability to transfer the things that you know well to different contexts. And I think whether that, you know, that area of expertise is, you know, is code, whether, you know, that's medicine, like whatever your area of expertise is, I think if you know that thing and you know that well, and you also know how to stay abreast of what the new, you know, what the new ideas are, what the new research is, what the new technologies are in that area, you become that expert and that power user. And one of the things that we really help the young women in our program to understand, you know, is to have a broad conceptual grounding, so that whether they're learning, you know, kind of an easy block-based coding language, or whether they're learning something that's a little bit more complicated, they can actually take those basic skills that they have and transfer it to something else. So we feel really confident that we give girls this sense of how to learn, how to find answers when they need them, how to keep working on something even when they're stuck, how to think outside the box and come up with new solutions, and then how they personally learn best. And I think those are transferable skills and things that we all need to know. And particularly, I think one thing when you are working in the field of technology that you become really accustomed to doing is just sort of staying abreast of new ideas. So you have to update the languages that you know. You have to understand what the new, you know, JavaScript libraries are. You just sort of stay on top of a number of different ideas in ways I think that people across most disciplines can begin to understand. But increasingly, you know, I find that that's the most important skill I have, is to teach myself something new and to be able to understand like how I learn best, and to put myself in those situations so that if I need to brush up on a new language, I know like, oh, actually, you know what, this is going to be the best way to do that, and then I'll ask someone a few questions, and then I'll make something as a way to really explore what a new technology can do. And so that ability to teach yourself, to know how you learn, to ask questions, to recover from mistakes, those are the kinds of the sort of like deeper skills that we teach girls to make sure that they understand that sort of larger context.
Right.
I also think showing that ability to flex that muscle in a job interview, telling people you're hungry, you're curious, you're always a student, you want to be learning, and you're willing to learn anything, I think is absolutely key as well, because that's something that the job is going to change by nature. It's never going to be the same. And so somebody's really going to invest in somebody who they think is really going to invest in their own education.
That's a great point. I think also with this idea of learning to learn, we have to foster work environments that allow for that. So this idea of fostering a work culture that embraces a digital culture. Can you guys explain a little bit about what that means? Like what is a good digital work culture, and why is that so important for companies to be modeling their companies around?
I think culture is very important, and a very important word. So culture is good when it's fostering growth of a company and an organization, and it's not good when you're making it about ping pong or beer or things like that, because culture, when it's defined as that way, as do you fit in with what we normally do? Are you going to be a workaholic? Are you going to be here all around the clock? So culture is very bad when it becomes those words like you don't fit in, to determine fit. But when it's there to support and lift and encourage and facilitate these positive work relationships and the growth of an employee, culture is great when they're talking about we have a health insurance plan and it encourages you to work out at work, or we don't support Coca-Cola here, but we're going to have like healthy snacks instead, because that's the culture that they're trying to create. So that's when culture is good. Culture is bad when it's all of the bro things. So that's important.
Anyone else on that?
Yeah, just touching on that idea of fit. Fit so largely suggests norming.
Yes.
The idea that, oh yeah, they fit in with us. Sameness, likeness, etc. And so really looking for a cultural value add. Is this person adding to our culture? Is this person going to be, game changing for us in some way or another is key. And something else that I think is really huge is understanding among teams and at companies, what is sacred time for somebody? Because so much of what we found in our work at Thrive Global, which both has a consumer media platform but also goes into corporations and works with their workforces, is that so many people, largely women, are saying, my boss has a 8 a.m. conference call every day, and all I want to be doing is taking my daughter to school. And it's like, okay, well, have you told your boss that? And largely the answer is no, because we don't want to be seen as weak. We don't want to be seen as, oh, well, I can't make it. I'm unavailable at that time. Our culture has so rewarded the idea that you're accessible at all times, which is so unhealthy, and we know the science proves is actually making us less productive. Yes, exactly. We know that that's not even fact. And so how can we make our companies and our cultures, and this is something that you can do today at your companies. You can say to your team, and again, you don't have to be the team leader to say this, what is your sacred time? What is time during which you never want me to contact you, email you, text you, Slack you, any of these ways in which now it is impossible to ever leave work? How can we make it such that there is that time where we get to be ourselves and enjoy it? It's amazing what just even talking about it can do to relationships and to culture.
So this brings us into kind of our next and last segment, which is one of my favorites, this idea of a digital detox and why that is so important. People are now starting to talk about it a little bit more. There's a whole movement, the time well spent movement around it, about keeping people spending their time on their phones and in their apps, rather than spending the max amount of time in those apps and using that as a new metric for success. But how do you kind of actively turn off and not have your employer say, well, what happened to Callie, or what happened to Sarah? She hasn't been answering her emails for the last 3 hours. And how do you make that okay for your employees?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
So this is something that is absolutely core to Thrive Global. We've partnered with Tristan Harris and the Time Well Spent movement around this whole idea. So one thing I would say is definitely starting with your teams and just talking to each other. Even saying to somebody like, hey, I know that your morning hours are your time for email, but when I wake up and have 15 emails from you, that's a really hard way to start my day. I guarantee that person is going to be like, oh, yeah, I was just getting it off my plate. It's just this idea of whose plate is it on? But I will tell you that I'm a huge fan of an email scheduling tool called followup.cc. You can also use Boomerang, all sorts of different things like that. And that is huge, because think about the reality of it. Everybody sent an email on a weekend where they're just like, oh, I'm just getting it off my plate. That person doesn't need to answer, but that feeling. You see that email and you're like, I have to respond. If I don't respond, what are they thinking? You spend more time analyzing the email than you actually ever would have interacting with it. And so I'm a huge advocate for just talking to people if they have digital habits that are making you anxious. The other thing I would say is something that has been absolutely huge for me. I got to Thrive and I was like, all right, I gotta walk this walk. And getting my phone out of my bedroom, I don't know, does anybody in here leave their phone outside their bedroom?
Now I do because of Ariana.
That's awesome.
I put it to bed.
I see some hands. That's amazing. I mean, the reality is we charge our phones better and more than we charge ourselves. And that's crazy. Like, humans are not machines. There is no data to prove that we can work that way. And so just getting your phone out of your bedroom is absolutely huge. I can tell you, not waking up and having the first thing you see be those 15 emails is absolutely game changing. And I will tell you, I get an extra hour of sleep per night since changing that habit. It used to be that I would get in bed and be like, oh, now it's my time. I should do all the things I want to do. That's crazy. Find time to do those things in your real life, and then when you're going to sleep, turn it off.
And it's very interesting because there are many studies actually showing that companies who decided to have a pantry, a space where people can go have a coffee, have a snack and talk, had the numbers of emails per day that the company was actually exchanging decreased significantly. So the level of stress that is related to the number of emails that we receive during the day actually decreased significantly. What does it mean? It means that we need to talk more to each other. And companies understand that, so they try to create, like, I would say, family-like space as here, all together, you know, where you can have a coffee, have a break, and you talk to each other, and you get to the point so much quicker, you know, so, and you're not stressed. Yes.
So to definitely agree, Ariana had suggested creating a little bed blanket for my phone, and I actually do it. I made one, I cut up a sock, and I put my phone to bed now on a charger that's not by my bed, because I don't want to be
an entrepreneur.
Yes, I don't want to be kept up all night looking on Facebook or Instagram or taking away from what's the best use of my maximum time. So it doesn't make sense for me to do that. But I will say this, being a developer, we keep really weird hours. So I find myself working way until 3 a.m. coding something, and I realize that that's not healthy. So now I also put my devices all to bed. I put myself to bed, and I make sure that I don't respond to emails that, I mean, I'm giving myself a self-imposed deadline of things that I can't get done in a day. Like, nobody else is holding me to this deadline, it's just myself. So I became really mindful with how I'm going to use my energy throughout the day, and when I'm going to turn myself off, turn myself down, put my devices away, stop coding, because you can get code hand and your arm becomes crazy. So it's very important to do that. So you have to have digital rest, and your body needs rest.
Great.
Yeah, quickly, I'll just say that I tried something new when I moved to Girls Who Code, which is I did a working style sheet for everyone on my team. And there's just like 8 quick questions about, you know, how you work best, and when you feel most productive, and like when are your like don't bother me times, and what do you need to feel rejuvenated. And it's just really helpful to actually have that data on everyone who reports to me and everyone who I work with, because then I know, you know, and then they know, like, I have certain hours where I just really need to be offline, and I'm come back and I'm refreshed, and I'm a much more pleasant boss when I have that time.
That's great. So I hope that you guys have learned a little something about digital's role in our world today. Maybe you're not going to learn to code, but maybe you're going to be a little bit more open to learning about the jobs of developers and learning how to interact with them. Or maybe you've learned how to kind of create more of a culture that embraces digital, or you're gonna ask your employees, you know, what is it that I can help you with to help you disconnect and then reconnect. But I would love to have you guys just take out a piece of paper and quickly write down one commitment that you're going to make, whether that is, you know, making a bed for your phone or something else.
Phone bed, yes.
Yeah, so one personal commitment about what you've decided to start learning or doing differently with your digital skills. And I want to thank our panel today for sharing their insight. Thank you guys.